for the given function, apply f of x plus h minus fx over h. Okay, so f of x equals x squared plus 8x. So here's my question. If I give you f of x plus h, what does that mean?
X plus h and for every x.
You got to replace every x with x plus h. Does that make sense? So every time you see x, you're plugging in x plus h. So x becomes x plus h. X becomes x plus h.
Oh.
Remember that was the mistake from last time, right? You don't distribute the f into everything.
So
Yeah.
that one is wrong too.
No. The top, the what you plugged in at the top there, that's fine. That's true.
But what do you have that's different?
So I just started from a different point. So what I like to do is I like to write out what f of x plus h is first. You see what I'm saying? So I just solve for this part here, or I'm going to solve for that part there. Okay. So now we have to clean up. How do you clean up f of parentheses x plus h squared? How do we go about doing that? Okay. Cool. And then we distribute or FOIL. My thing wasn't working right. Okay. Is that cool? So I here I did this kind of fast, but I FOILed this. X and x is x squared. X and h is xh. H and x is hx. And the last part, h and h is h squared. And the back one you just distribute it as well. Is that okay?
I just don't know where you're at only because my idea of what it's supposed to look like, the steps that I'm taking is different from the ones you're taking, so I'm completely confused.
Okay, so what you did, y'all cool with that? I'm sure, Rebecca. Okay. Yes, yeah. So the next move would be to put these two together. And this would be x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Correct. Right? Kind of put them together? Okay. So what you did is you said, given f of x plus h minus f of x over h, right? Right. So what you did is you said, okay, I'm going to take this and write what it is, right? But what is this? This is what I'm doing here.
Well, I understand that, but the thing is that I don't see the path. I understand that this part here is what you're working on, not this part, because this part is attached, will be added at the end within the formula, but you're working this part out first.
Correct.
That's what you're doing.
Yes.
I just don't see what you're doing there.
Okay, so if the function is f of x, this is the original function, right?
Right.
Okay, I've been doing what we've always done. So instead of x, I gave you
Right.
x plus h, right?
Right.
So every time I saw an x, what did I plug in?
X plus h.
Every time I saw an x, what did I plug in?
X plus h. But here's... I'm not understanding that though, because if x squared plus 8x, you replace that with the x.
Yeah, x became x plus h. Whatever's here got replaced with that.
Oh, so you're doing it backwards.
Yeah.
You're doing it backwards. That's what gets so confusing. Oh my gosh.
What is that? 3?
So that's 8x plus 8h.
It's just like he's so angry.
So, but that's what you do, right?
Right.
You replace it with the other one, right?
No, I see what you're doing now. You're doing it backwards. You're flipping it, and the way I have it is just combining it and putting it all together.
That's kind of yeah. But I think that this is the cleanest way because you're like basically you're not doing like a bunch of stuff at once. You're just focusing on right that piece. So this is basically all of this is going to be what I circled here, right?
And then whatever answer you get, then you plug in
the f of x part.
Right.
Yeah. So now, let me rewrite that. So this is going to be x squared plus 2xh. Give me a sec. I'll flip it to y'all. Plus h squared plus 8x plus 8h, right? Because these are like terms. Right. xh, hx are the same thing. Right? It's like 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2, right?
For this car, you can say it's the same.
Yeah, so this is x. So it's xh plus xh.
But if we go back to the previous things we were doing,
When you multiply, the order doesn't matter. So x times h is always the same thing as h times x. Okay. Usually what we actually do is we usually write the x ones for the x values first. Or actually you put the x usually in the back. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So this right here is the first part, right? Is this part here, right? Right. But then we have to subtract f of x, which is basically that function, right? So now we're going to subtract x squared plus 8x. Which is the f of x, right? And this is all over h. So the $1 million question here is what should always happen when you clean up the top part? Anything that doesn't have an h in it should cancel out every single time. So if that's not happening, you did something wrong. The other thing that's very important here is that the second part, right, f of x, so this says f of x right here, right? F of x is just the original function, right? When you plug that in, you have to plug it in parentheses, right? If you don't put it in that parentheses, you're going to miss the question. Okay?
so anything with no h is canceled.
So let's clean this up. So when we rewrite this, we get x squared plus 2xh plus h squared plus 8x plus 8h, distribute negative x squared minus 8x all over h. Okay, so what happens with the x squared and the negative x squared?
They cancel.
Which it should be happening, right? Because they don't have an h with them.
But first you just there's the one here, right?
Then it's like a negative 1. Yeah, I just distributed. Yes. Okay. And then if this is negative 8x and this is plus 8x, they're also going to cancel out, right? Which should happen. Anything that has an h with it that doesn't have an h with it is going to cancel out. Okay.
Okay, wait. So I'm confused. Like we should take out all the h's. I'm confused.
So what I'm saying is anything that doesn't have an h in it will cancel out from the other side.
Why? Because they cancel out each other. That's why.
Yeah. So this x squared and that minus x squared. But what I'm saying is that will always happen. Okay. Like no matter what, if it doesn't have an h, if you end up solving this and you have like an x squared or an x or a 2 or a 3 like floating by itself on the outside, you did something wrong. It should always cancel out. The next step from here, it should be such that everything that you have on top should have an h. And the reason why is that h on the bottom has to cancel out. So we're here, right? And then because all of these have h's, we can go doop, doop, Now that's just going to take away one of them. Doop. Right? And that leaves me with 2x plus h plus 8.
Why did you cancel the exponent?
Well, h squared is h times h, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the h's cancel out,
Oh.
not both.